Hey everybody, we're live and in stereo. So now we're gonna do the next past paper, which is the most recent past paper that came in your examinations, which is actually May June 2022 5070/22 1 hour 30 minutes paper, right? Theory. So people think that this was a difficult paper, but let's make it easy peasy lemon squeezy. So again, the question number one says choose from the following compounds to answer the following questions. Each compound may be used once, more than once, or not at all. State which compound is purple in color. Which compound is purple in color? Think of it, right? Come on, come on, come on. Help me with this. Which is purple? AgCl? No, that's a white solid. Barium nitrate? No, that's colorless because it's in an aqueous state. Ki, colorless aqueous state. KMNO4 right here. Its original color is purple, everybody. That's why when it performs oxidation, when it's actually oxidizing something, because it's an oxidizing agent, it'll go from purple to colorless. So its own color is purple. That's why we say that's KMNO4. Now next is reacts with aqueous sodium sulfate. So reacts with aqueous sodium sulfate to give you guys a white precipitate. So you realize something, one of these compounds will have to make an insoluble salt, right? And you realize which one is this? AgCl तो पहले से ही एक insoluble salt है. But barium nitrate, if you take barium nitrate, everybody, and you react it with sodium sulfate, both are aqueous, right? Because both are soluble in water. So if you add both of these in water, you have a Ba2 plus, NO3 minus, Na plus, SO4 2 minus, and you realize since barium and sulfate, if they come together, they will make a white precipitate. Why? We even did the test for sulfate ions. We add barium nitrate to it. Why? Because barium sulfate is an insoluble white solid, right? So that is actually our barium nitrate right here. So BaNO3 twice. If you add barium nitrate, it will form a white precipitate, right? Then it says reacts with aqueous chlorine to give a brown solution. So aqueous chlorine के साथ, so chlorine के साथ ऐसे कौन सा है जो brown solution देगा? Obviously we did the displacement reaction. Ki is colorless, but once since it's a reducing, remember Ki का test, it was a reducing agent, but if you add chlorine to it, you realize KCl will form. Why? Because the chlorine will displace this I because it's more reactive than I, and therefore I2 will be formed, and I2 in aqueous state is a brown solution, right? So realize actually which compound you have? Ki, potassium iodide, right? This is prepared using a precipitation reaction. Which is prepared using a precipitation reaction? AgCl, silver chloride. Remember, you take silver nitrate, you take sodium chloride, you add the two together, silver chloride is formed, and that's called a precipitation reaction. Why? Because a precipitate is being formed. So that's actually AgCl. Wherever you guys have any questions, ask me, okay? Contains an anion with charge 3 minus. So let's do that. AgCl में Cl के ऊपर -1 है, nitrate के ऊपर you have -1, I is -1, MnO4 is -1, SO3 2 minus है, nitrate again is -1, carbonate is 2 minus, nitride Na3N. Why is it forming Na3N? Because Na has +1 charge, N has 3 minus charge. That's why when you cross multiply you get Na3N. So you realize which one is the compound? Na3N right here. So it contains an anion which has a charge of 3 minus. Now, is used to test for a reducing agent. What is used to test for a reducing agent, everybody? An oxidizing agent. And which oxidizing agent do you have? Right here, KMNO4. So because you guys might be wondering why am I writing KMNO4 again? They actually said each compound may be used once or more than once. So yeah, KMNO4 is being used more than once. So yeah, that's it. So we got 6 out of 6 marks, easy peasy lemon squeezy. Again, question 2 says state the electronic configuration of sulfur. So electronic configuration of sulfur, actually you have to go to the periodic table. Sulfur is right here. It has 16 protons, therefore 16 electrons. So the electronic configuration should be 2. It should be 2 and then 8 electrons, because second shell can hold up to a maximum of 8 electrons. First shell can hold up to a maximum of 2 electrons. So 10 okay, 6 are still remaining, so they will be adjusted in the third shell, right? So 2, 8, 6, 16 electrons are complete. Now it says predict the density of polonium. So it's asking you to predict it. They like, see, if they are asking you to predict something or to suggest something, suggestion is actually your concepts that you've learned all the way, and now you're gonna suggest something on the basis of that. Prediction is they'll give you the hints and you'll have to predict it. So if you look at this, they say predict the density of polonium, and densities are given right here. So one is like 2.1, and then there's the trend from 2.1 to 4.8, and then there's like a trend from 4.8 to like 6.3, and you realize कि तकरीबन 1.7 1.8 का increase आ रहा है, right? So 2.1 to 4.8, that's like an increase of what, 2.7, I guess. Yeah, and then after 2.7 there's an increase of what, like 1 point, how much, 1 point कितने का increase आया, 8 to, that's 1.5, right? Yeah, so you get an increase of like 1.5, and then again you can make like an increase of 1.5, 1.6, or like 1.7, your choice. So let's make like 1.5 or like 1.6, whatever you want, like maybe even 2, इन दोनों के बीच में भी आप कर सकते. So that doesn't really matter. You can get like 1.9 का difference भी लग सकते हैं, right? So anything between 1.5 and 2.7 you can predict that, and let's say I'm gonna say like it's like 7.0 or like 6.9. That's just a prediction, so I can just say 7.0, and in your periodic, in your marking scheme, they'll give you a range. Usually I guess iska range is gonna be like from 6.8 to like 9.3 9.4 tak iska range aapko diya hoga. So 7.0 is a good statement, right? Now it says sulfur has a boiling point of 445 degrees Celsius. Predict the physical state of sulfur at 200 degrees Celsius. So obviously it's not going to be a gas at 200 degrees Celsius. Why? Because its boiling point is at 445 degrees Celsius. But if you check its melting point, sulfur's melting point is 113 degrees Celsius. So at 113 degrees Celsius, sulfur would have become a liquid. Then 114 पे भी liquid होगा, 15 पे भी, and similarly at 200 it will still be a liquid. So you realize that its physical state is not going to be a solid or a gas, it's going to be a liquid. And the reason for that is pretty simple. It's because the melting point of sulfur, is below 200 degrees Celsius, so it's already melted and it's a liquid, and it's not a gas because the boiling point of sulfur is above 200 degrees Celsius. And what is that? It's 445 degrees Celsius, right? So that's pretty simple. You could have just said that and you would get your beautiful marks. Then it says oxygen exists as a diatomic molecule. Or to draw the dot and cross diagram, so you represent one O atom with dots and one O atom with cross. But O is in group 6, so it needs how many electrons to become stable? 2 electrons to become stable. Therefore it will make 2 bonds with each other, right? So one O and the next O, so you have O, and it'll make 2 bonds, which means two pairs of electrons are being shared, so a total of 4. So 1 pair and then 2 pair, and how many are remaining? So if this oxygen is actually sharing 2 electrons, 4 will be left in its outermost shell, right? So 2, and that's 4, and here you can represent this one with dots, so that's 2 and that's 4, and if you check it out, 2 4 6 8, 2 4 and then 6 8, boom. So both are stable. Now explain in terms of structure. It wants you to explain it in terms of structure and in terms of bonding, why oxygen has a low melting point. So structure kya hai? Oxygen is a simple covalent molecule with, and what's the bonding it has? Why is it a weak, why does it have a low melting point? You remember that covalent molecules melting point depended on van der Waals forces. So it's a simple covalent molecule with weak van der Waals forces, or weak intermolecular forces of attraction, which are easy to overcome. And that's why you realize you've discussed its structure and you've discussed its bonding, and that's why it has a low melting point. Now it says selenium is a non-metal. Deduce the formula of selenium 4. Deduce the formula of selenium 4 oxide. So selenium 4 means it's gonna make an ion of 4 plus, and oxide is oxygen is always 2 minus. So realize how many, for one selenium, how many O's do you need? So if this is 4 plus, for one selenium you need 2 O's, right? So 2 O to balance out the charges. 4 plus ke liye 4 minus चाहिए. So its formula is going to be selenium oxide, SeO2. Or you could have said this is 1, that's 2, and then you cross multiply, so SeO2, same thing, right? Then it says a small sample of selenium oxide is dissolved in water. Okay, so selenium oxide was a non-metal, right? And if you dissolve a non-metal in water, what will happen, everybody? Non-metal oxide है आपके पास. If you dissolve it in water, what will happen? acid will be formed. Whenever you dissolve non-metal oxides in water, you'll get acid, right? So it says 2 drops of universal, see, it's even asking that question. 2 drops of universal indicator are added to the aqueous solution. Predict the color of the universal indicator in the solution. So explain your answer. So what will be the color? Because it's gonna form an acid, you realize it's gonna be either red or yellow or orangish. So you can say red or orange, right? So the color is gonna be either red or orange, because universal indicator, if it's an acid, it'll give you like a red, yellow, orangish color, right? And then green is neutral, and then purple and blue is your alkali, right? And an explanation for that is because non-metal oxides are acidic. That's it. Boom. And non-metal oxides are acidic, and you can say they form an acid, right, in water. Now it says calculate the volume in decimeter cube for 20.2 grams of oxygen at room temperature. So you have given the 20 points, so write down my known data. 20.2 grams of O2. You don't need grams of O2, so they needs to be cancelled out. But what do you need? You need volume, and grams and volume don't have any relationship. Grams and moles have a relationship, and you know, okay, 1 mole of O2 has 32 grams of O2, but you don't need moles of O2, so they also need to go in the denominator. And what do you need? You need volume of O2. So moles of O2 and volume of O2 have a relationship, that is 1 mole of any gas will occupy 24 decimeter cube. So I guess if you calculate that, everybody, what do you guys get? If you calculate that, you get, what do you get? Can you calculate that? 30.2 times 24 over 32. What do you get, guys? What do we get? 30.2 times 24 over 32. Come on, sleepy heads. You get 22.65, everybody. Now you realize, look at what's been asked. So you will get 2 marks for this. Why? Because the next part says give your answers in terms of 2 significant figures. So 2 significant figures actually mean if you have 22 points, so this is 1 significant figure, that's 2 significant figures. But because 6 is greater than 4, you realize this will be rounded off to 22, and you'll get 23 decimeter cube in 2 significant figures. So that's 23 decimeter cube is your answer. Now, yeah, this is a good question. It says identify A, B, C, and D. Now, it says this is your beautiful acid. And which acid is this? Meth, eth, pro, but. This is butanoic acid, right? So let me write it down. Butanoic acid. Now it says butanoic acid, when it's reacted with magnesium, so any acid plus metal, what will that give you? Salt and which gas? Salt and hydrogen. So gas A that is going to be forming is hydrogen, and salt B ka naam kya hoga? It's going to be called magnesium what? Butanoate, right? So butanoate, because that's the salt. Beautiful. So magnesium ki spelling puri likhni. I'm just writing Mg for simplifications, right? We're going to write it properly down. Now it says gas C. Now it says magnesium carbonate is now reacted with this acid. So metal carbonate plus acid will give you the salt, water, and it'll give you a carbon dioxide gas. So gas C here is carbon dioxide, and liquid D is actually H2O, that's water. So let's write A, B, C, and D. So A was our gas, that is hydrogen, and it's saying identify by name. Don't write the formula, write the name. So gas A is hydrogen. Salt B is actually magnesium. Magnesium butanoate. And then it says C is actually carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide. And D with you guys is your H2O, okay? And then it says name and draw the structure of E. So what is E? It's saying you have butanoic acid and you heat with ethanol, right? So acid plus ethanol, so carboxylic acid plus alcohol, that was giving you guys what? That was giving you guys esters, everybody. So you're adding, so let me show you guys. So you're saying you guys have this carboxylic acid, meth, eth, pro, but, that's your carboxylic acid, and you guys are heating it with ethanol. So OH and that's C right here. So let's take our beautiful ethanol. So how do we form the ester? Carboxylic acid will lose the OH, the alcohol bit will lose the H, and obviously water molecule will be eliminated, and these two will join together right here. And please complete all the other bonds. So this is gonna be completed, that's completed, that's completed, and all the bonds are completed, right? So this is your ester that is forming. That's the structure of your ester. Now what is gonna be the name? So the name, alcohol's name will change change into YL. So if this was ethanol, it'll change into ethyl, right? And the acid bit will change into the name of the salt, right? So meth, eth, pro, but, it was butanoic acid, so ethyl butanoate. Its name is gonna be ethyl butanoate. Good stuff. Moving on, it says butanoic acid is a weak acid. State what is meant by the term weak acid. So what is a weak acid? An acid which partially dissociates or partially ionizes in water, or partially dissociate into its ions when dissolved in water. Beautiful. Let's just state the nucleon number. Question number 4 is to state the nucleon. So guys, if you guys have any questions in between, do stop me and ask, okay? State the nucleon number of bromine. So nucleon number is the total number of protons plus neutrons. That is actually the mass number. It's also known as the nucleon number. That is 79. Then says state the number of electrons. So you had 35 protons and 35 electrons for a neutral atom, but since it's minus right here, it means that one extra electron has been gained, so now you have 36 electrons. It says calcium is 4020 is the full symbol for one isotope of calcium. Write down the full symbol for another isotope of calcium. So what is an isotope? It should have the same number of protons but different number of neutrons. So if this is 40, you can make this like into 41, right? So just increase 1 in it. So that's gonna be calcium 2041, right? Because isotopes have the same number of protons but different number of neutrons or different nucleon number, so you can write this as your isotope. Now it says part D, it says okay, describe how calcium 2 plus ion is formed from a calcium atom. How can calcium 2 plus ion be formed? By calcium losing 2 electrons. So if so calcium losing 2 electrons forms, you guys have to write electrons completely, calcium 2 plus, right? Moving on, it says bromide, calcium bromide is an ionic compound. So calcium bromide is an ionic compound. Calcium bromide conducts electricity when molten but not when solid. Explain why calcium conducts electricity. Calcium bromide conducts electricity when molten but not when solid. So we've done this. It's an ionic compound, and ionic compounds conduct, so calcium bromide conducts electricity in molten. Why? Because it has not free ions, it has free moving ions, right? But you realize this is for 2 marks, so you'll only so you'll get this, just by writing this you'll get 1 mark. Why? Because it's also asking you, okay, why is it not conducting electricity when in solids? You also have to write that it does not conduct when it's solid. Why? Because it has no free moving ions in solid. So just by writing free moving ions and no free moving ions, you're gonna get 2 out of 2 marks. So no free moving ions in solid state. That's it. Predict 2 other physical properties of calcium bromide. So other, it means कि electrical conductivity तो बता दी, ये कल भी किया था. It has high melting and boiling point because it's an ionic compound. And you realize it's the second part was the solubility. So it's soluble in water, or you can say they are solids at room temperature and pressure. So you can also say that solids at room temperature and pressure, right? Moving on, question number 5, it says ethanol is manufactured by the reaction between ethene and steam. Conditions used are 300 degrees Celsius, all that good stuff. Now it says an equilibrium for the mixture is formed, reversible reaction hai. Predict what happens to the amount of ethanol in the equilibrium. So amount of ethanol ab batana humne, we have to predict that. So it's saying what will happen to the amount of ethanol in the equilibrium mixture if the temperature is decreased and the pressure remains. So you realize for temperature you need to know whether the reaction is endothermic and exothermic, and they've given you guys this stuff. So the forward reaction is exothermic, so enthalpy change is negative for this reaction, right? So forward is exothermic, so you write forward is exo and backward is endo, everybody. Now it says what will happen once you decrease the temperature. So first let's write the explanation, and then we'll give the prediction. So what will be the explanation? You realize decreasing the temperature actually favors which part? Decreasing temperature favors exothermic part, so favors the exothermic process, or favors the exothermic part of the reaction, right? Or favors the exothermic reaction. Favors the exothermic reaction. Therefore the equilibrium will shift to, equilibrium shifts to the right part, so to the right. And what will happen to the amount of ethanol? So that's ethanol. So if the equilibrium is shifting, so what is gonna be your prediction? Okay, what will happen to the amount of ethanol? More ethanol is formed. And you've written the reasoning down. Okay, decrease in temperature favors the exothermic reaction, therefore the equilibrium shifts to the right side. Okay, yeah, easy stuff. Now moving on, it says predict what happens to the amount of ethanol in the equilibrium if the pressure is decreased and the temperature. So pressure decrease का अब क्या होगा equilibrium पे? So we realize कि decrease. Let's write the explanation first. So decrease in pressure favors what? More number of moles of gas. But more numbers of moles of what? Of gas. You have to write gas is very important, right? और हमने इस पे एक tricky सवाल भी किया जो पहले आया था. And it favors more number of moles of gas, which is on which side of the equations? Which is on the, if you check it out, you have 2 moles of gas and 1 mole of gas here. So 2 versus 1, so it's on the left side, right? So which is on the left side of the equation. So what is the prediction? Therefore, what will happen? What is the prediction? What will happen to the amount of ethanol? The amount of ethanol actually decreases. So less ethanol, or the amount of ethanol decreases, right? Beautiful stuff. Now, describe the manufacture of aqueous ethanol by fermentation of glucose. Include the equation and the essential conditions. So 3 marks के लिए fermentation क्या होते हैं? Glucose. So you say yeast is added to glucose, right? If you guys remember how we made our sharab at home, I mean alcohol at home, so yeast is added to glucose. So we don't have to write कि गाँव में कैसे होता है. That was just for your information. You just have to write the conditions and all that. So yeast is added to glucose. No oxygen is provided. Yeah, no oxygen is provided. And what is the temperature? A temperature of 25 degrees to 35 degrees Celsius is provided. And what is going to be formed? Therefore, ethanol and carbon dioxide are formed. And they're saying write the equation too. So write the equation. It's going to be C6H12O6, everybody. And that's going to give you, you add yeast to it, and that's going to give you guys what? C2H5OH, that's my ethanol, and it's going to give you carbon dioxide. So in this case, if you want to balance out the reaction, you have 12 hydrogens here, you only have 6 hydrogens here. So just add a 2 here, and hydrogens are balanced. And if you look at carbons, you have 6 carbons here, 4, 5. You have 5 carbons here. So 2 times 2, you have 4 here. So if I add a 2 right here, carbons are also balanced, and therefore oxygens are also going to be balanced. Why? Because 2 oxygens here, and then 2 into 2, that's 4, and total of 6, right? So that's a balanced equation. Okay, moving on. Then it says a sample of alloy containing aluminum copper is added to hot dilute sulfuric acid. Only the aluminum reacts with dilute sulfuric acid. Now why is this, guys? Why is this? We studied this in metal because copper is not reactive. So hydrogen is more reactive than copper, therefore copper cannot displace the hydrogen in the acid, and that's why copper can't react, right? So that's, we studied that in metals in our reactivity series too. Now it says only the aluminum reacts, obviously only the aluminum react, and the products of the reaction are hydrogen and aqueous aluminum sulfate. Construct the ionic equations with the state symbols for the reaction of aluminum with dilute sulfuric acid. So aluminum plus H2SO4. So aluminum is a solid, it's a metal. H2SO4 is an acid, it's gonna be aqueous. It's gonna give you guys salt and hydrogen. So aluminum sulfate dega. And what is aluminum sulfate? Al has a charge of 3 plus, SO4 is 2 minus. So you cross multiply, you'll get Al 2 SO4 whole thrice plus hydrogen gas, everybody, right? So they're saying state symbols. So aluminum sulfate, is it soluble? Insoluble? It's soluble, so that's aqueous. Now you even know how to write state symbols, right? And if you want to balance this out, so you guys have like 3 sulfates right here. So you realize you'll have to have 3 sulfates on the left hand side, or you could have done that with the ions too. But let me just use common sense here, right? So 3 sulfates on the right, 3 sulfates on the left, and you have 2 aluminums on the right hand side. So you should have 2 aluminums on the left, and now you just have to balance the hydrogens. So 3 times 2, that's 6 hydrogens here, and you have only 2 hydrogens on the left hand side. So you multiply this with 3, and boom, your equation is gonna be balanced, everybody, right? Okay, and it's saying write the, sorry, my bad, it's saying write the ionic equations with the same, like nobody even told me, right? I wrote the full equations. Now how do we write our ionic equation? Let's write our ionic equation. Let's take these guys up. So let's erase this stuff and let's take these guys up and write the ionic equation right here. So what is the ionic equation gonna be? Aluminum is solid, so it will remain solid, so 2Al solids, plus you'll have 3 times H pluses, and so you have 3 times, but you realize कि 2 hydrogens पहले से हैं, and 3 times 2, that's 6, so you don't have 3 H pluses, you actually have how many H pluses? You actually have 6 H pluses in total, right? And then SO4 कितने हैं? Plus 3 SO4, 2 minuses, you guys have that. And on the right hand side, if you see, you have 2 Al, 3 pluses, and you guys have sulfates, but how many sulfates do you have? 3 SO4s, right? So 3 SO4, 2 minuses, and then you have 3 hydrogen gases, everybody. So if you want to write the ionic equation only, sulfates, 3 sulfates and 3 sulfates will cancel out. This is aqueous and that's a solid, so they won't cancel out. And this is aqueous and that's a gas, so they won't cancel out, right? So this is a solid and that's aqueous, so they won't cancel out because this is another thing and that's an ion. This is a metal and that's an ion. We only cancel out the things that are similar on both hands, are same to same. So that's sulfate, ion, and that's so we cancel out spectator ions that don't take part in the reaction. So what is your ionic equation? It's going to be 2Al solid plus 6H pluses, and that's going to give you guys 2Al3 plus 3 hydrogen gas. So hydrogen is a gas, that's going to be aqueous, that's going to be aqueous, and that's solid. And even you see both hand side with the charges are balanced. So 2 times 3 is 6 plus, and 6 times 1 is 6 plus. And 2 aluminums, 3 times 2 is 6 hydrogens and 6 hydrogens. So everything is balanced and all that good stuff. Now, it says describe a, what is it saying? Describe a, what's it saying, guys? Describe a chemical test for aluminum ions. Now, what is the chemical test for aluminum ions? Pretty simple. You add aqueous NaOH, few drops. So add few drops of aqueous NaOH. White PPT is formed. Precipitate आपने पूरा लिखना है, right? You have to write PPT. You don't have to write precipitate instead of PPT. Is formed, and in aqueous, in excess, it's soluble. And for confirmation, because you realize कि zinc भी यही का यही करता है, so for confirmation, what do we do? For confirmation, add NH3 aqueous, ammonia aqueous, few drops obviously, so add few drops of ammonia aqueous, and that'll give you a white precipitate again, but in excess now it'll turn insoluble. So you guys should remember that in excess turns insoluble, right? So that's a cover. So now your exam actually, because this was only for 2 marks, exam was saying कि if the student has written this up till this point, even this is correct, and if it's written just this and this, even that is correct. So you would get 2 marks anyways. But you realize कि see, अगर आप सिर्फ ये लिखते तो ये फिर भी this was like a little bit ambiguous because even zinc gives you the same test, right? So you wouldn't have the same. So you realize कि aluminum के लिए you had to differentiate, and we studied the differentiating factor between zinc and aluminum. That was when you added actually aqueous ammonia. So you guys should remember all of that stuff. Yeah. Question? No? Okay. Okay. The aqueous aluminum sulfate formed a crystal to make hydrated aluminum salts. Okay. The relative formula mass for the hydrated aluminum sulfate. So it's saying that this entire molecule weighs 666, right? And it says calculate the value of X in the formula. So it's pretty simple mathematics. You just add all the individual masses. So aluminum kitna hai? Aluminum, I think it's 27. So 27 times 2 plus sulfate is actually what? 32 plus 16 times 4, and then whole multiply this with 3. And then I said the way you calculate this X is X is actually multiplying with H2O, right? So we consider H2O as one single element. So H2O total kitna hai? 18, and 18 times X is 18X. So plus 18x, because we have to find the number of moles of water molecules, right? And all of this will weigh how much? 666. That's simple mathematics, simple equation making. Yeah, so if you calculate this, it's gonna give you guys what? Can you guys do that? Can you guys do that? So this, if you total all of that, 27 times 4 times this and this, that's gonna give you 342 plus 18, x equals 666. 666 minus 342, that's 324 divided by 18, that's going to give you 18. So x equals 18. How many water molecules do you have? 18. So the formula would have been Al2SO4 whole thrice dot 18H2O. So 18 water molecules are attached to it. So the number of water molecules attached to a crystal is known as water of crystallization, right? Now, what is meant by the term alloy? It is a mixture of metals with other elements. Boom, that's it. So up till this point we've scored full marks. Let's move forward to question number 7. It says carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide are pollutants formed at power stations and it says state 1 environmental problem caused by the production of carbon dioxide. Again, carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas, leads to global warming. State 1 environmental problem caused by producing sulfur dioxide. Acidic oxides causes acidic rain. So acid rain, sorry. Acidic rain, acid rain. We've done this a gazillion times now. Sulfur dioxide produced at power stations can be removed by a process of called flue gas desulfurization. And I said that mostly calcium carbonate is used, but you can use calcium oxide and hydroxide. But it's better to use what the examiner is saying, calcium carbonate is good, right? So calcium carbonate plus sulfur dioxide gives you calcium sulfite and carbon dioxide. That is, the reaction needs to be fast to remove as much sulfur dioxide as possible. Explain using, so reaction needs to be fast, which means the rate of reaction should have been greater, right? It says explain why using ideas about particles why calcium carbonate needs to be powder, obviously to increase the rate of reaction, but saying explain it, right? Why it should be in form of a powder instead of a single solid lump. So we say it should be in terms of a powder, as there will be more particles. So it says talk about the particles. More particles exposed to SO2. Why? Because the surface area of calcium carbonate increases, and thus more frequent collisions, chances of successful collisions increases, and rate increases. Right, so that's good stuff. So the reaction goes fast. Now it says explain using ideas about particles why decreasing the temperature decreases the rate. So obviously decreasing the temperature decreases the kinetic energy of particles. Particles move slower, and if they move slower, you realize there are less frequent collisions, and if there are less frequent collisions, chances of successful collisions or effective collisions, or chances of successful collisions decreases, and thus rate decreases. Yeah, that's it. Moving on, it says explain why sulfur dioxide is oxidized in this reaction. Now you realize you could have talked about what's it called? You could have just talked about the oxidation states here as well. But since it's for 1 mark, अब मैं इसका oxidation state निकालूं, that is gonna be +4, और इसका फिर निकालूं, that's gonna be like +6, and then we say कि sulfur is going from +4 to +6, therefore it's being oxidized. You realize कि oxygen है इधर, sulfur dioxide में 2 oxygens है, now there are 3 oxygens. You can just say due to the gain of oxygen atom, we say that sulfur dioxide is oxidized because there's a gain of oxygen atom, everybody. Yeah, and we realize that oxidation is the gain of oxygen atom. And what is gaining oxygen atom? Sulfur dioxide gains an oxygen atom. That's going to be better. Yeah. So if it gains an oxygen, gain of oxygen is oxidation. Hamza, what are you doing? Gain of hydrogen is actually reduction. Yeah, we studied all these definitions for oxidations and reduction. No. Yeah, so explain using ideas about bond breaking and bond formation why the reaction is exothermic. So again, bond breaking kya cheez hai? So you tell the examiner bond breaking is endo, bond formation is exo. And why is it exothermic? Because the energy, so 1 mark for that, and the energy absorbed, we've done so many questions like this, during bond breaking is less than the energy released during bond formation, and the energy released during bond formation, and therefore the overall reaction is exo. Moving on, explain why the addition of a catalyst increases the rate of the reaction. Why? Because it lowers the activation energy. Easy stuff. Question number 8. This was a very, very easy paper, man. Zinc, all papers are easy. Halwa. Zinc is a metal, and now it says, explain how a coating of zinc prevents iron from rusting when the coating is scratched. So we did that because we said this is actually known as sacrificial protection, because zinc will actually sacrifice itself to protect iron. And how will it do that? Because zinc is more reactive than iron, therefore it will tend to lose the electrons to oxygen, thus protecting iron from getting oxidized, and hence rusting is prevented, right? So what happens is zinc is more reactive than iron, and therefore zinc will get oxidized itself rather. So zinc will tend, because it's more reactive, it will tend to lose the electrons to oxygen, thus protecting iron from getting oxidized, and zinc actually gets, so you can just say zinc gets oxidized. Right, you can also add that. Beautiful stuff. Now zinc has a metallic bonding. Describe with the aid of, so we had this, so you guys can expect these types of questions because this has been repeated like 2 years in a row now. So zinc is, describe the diagram. So let's draw the diagram for zinc, everybody, right? So let's draw the diagram. At least 3 layers hone chahiye, right? Let me just fix this. At least 3 layers, and they should be approximately of the same size, right? My size may vary a little bit, और थोड़ा सा इनको करीब भी कर दें. These are like too big. Let me just fix this. थोड़ा सा ना इनको करीब करीब भी कर दें. That's good. Don't overlap them, right? So electrons, 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 and this is a positive ion. Or if you don't want to write a positive ion, you can just add a 2 plus inside. Why? Because zinc makes an ion of 2 plus, right? So you could have added like 2 plus, 2 plus, 2 plus, 2 plus, 2 plus, and 2 plus right here. Now it says here, describe what is meant by metallic bonding. Now we've drawn the diagram. So what is meant by metallic bonding? It's a strong electrostatic forces of attraction. Force of attraction holds together, or between positive ions, or holds together a lattice of positive ions in its sea of delocalized electrons. Good stuff. Explain why zinc is a good conductor of electricity. Because it has free moving ions. Free moving electrons. My bad, because we are talking about metals. Electrons, right? Free moving electrons, not ions, because it's not an ionic compound. Metals, we're talking about electrons, right? Now it says, one stage is extraction of zinc involves electrolysis at the cathode. Zinc 2 plus is changed into zinc atoms, and at the anode, hydroxide ions is changed into oxygen molecules and water molecules. Literally, it has given you everything, cathode or anode. But cathode is the negative terminal, anode is the positive terminal. Panic. So zinc 2 plus will go at the cathode because it's negative positive, and it will be attracted by the cathode. So zinc 2 plus will gain 2 electrons at the cathode to become zinc, and it's even telling you all of that stuff. And then at the anode, hydroxide ion will go, but you realize if hydroxide ion doesn't go alone, 4 hydroxide ions will go together to give you 2 H2Os, O2, and 4 electrons lose kar dega, right? So that's what's happening. Zinc will gain the electrons because it's 2 plus, right? So it will gain the electrons from the cathode 2 plus will be attracted to the cathode. It lacks 2 electrons, therefore the cathode will give it the 2 electrons to become neutral. Okay? Yeah. Yeah. 2 in zinc? No. Why? Because you realize that 2 plus hai, 2 minus hai, charges are balanced. And how many zinc atoms do you have? 1. Like how many zincs do you have? Not atoms, this is an ion, but 1 zinc ion hai, so 1 zinc atom bhi hona chahiye. This would have been the case if you had like 2 zinc 2 plus, then 2 zincs would have been formed. Okay? Getting it? Yeah. Easy. Now, a sample of 2.4 grams of zinc is reacted with 50 centimeter cube of 2 mole per decimeter cube hydrochloric acid. Show by calculation that hydrochloric acid is in excess in this reaction. Okay, it's already telling you that hydrochloric acid is in excess. तो आप पहले find करें कि 2.3 grams के लिए कितने moles of hydrochloric acid actually चाहिए, right? So 2.3 grams के लिए how many moles should be there? So we'll do that theoretically from our equation and then calculate how many moles are available to you. So let's first calculate how many are available. So 50 centimeter cube of HCl है आपके पास, you know, don't need centimeter cube, 1 decimeter cube has 1000 centimeter cube, and then you guys know कि 1 decimeter cube of HCl में you guys have 2 moles of HCl. So if you guys can calculate that, you get, so 50 times 2 over 1000, that gives you 0.1. So available आपके पास 0.1 moles of HCl है, what they are actually doing practically. But let's see कि 2.34 grams के लिए actually theoretically if you were to do that, how many moles were required? So 2.523 grams of zinc के लिए how many? So 2.34 grams of zinc है, you know you don't need grams of zinc, so they'll go in the denominator, and the only relationship is grams and moles of zinc, and that is कि 1 mole of zinc has how many grams? Let's check zinc, 65. So 1 mole of zinc has 65 grams, and then from our reaction I know that 1 mole of zinc reacts with 2 moles of HCl. So 1 mole of zinc reacts with 2 moles of HCl. So if you calculate that stuff, you'll get 2.34 times 2 divided by 65. So actually कितना चाहिए था? Actually 2.34 grams of zinc के लिए 0.07 moles of HCl was actually needed, and that is what has been provided. So you're showing by calculation, so 0.1 minus, if you want to be more effective and efficient, you can say 0.1 minus answer, that's going to give you 0.028 moles of HCl are in excess. So see, I've actually given them all the explanation to why it's in excess, and you'll get the 3 beautiful marks for that, right? Yeah. Good. Now moving on. It says question number 9. That's the last question. Oh my god, I got tired. So question number 9 says give me a sec. Question number 9 says that alkanes are a homologous series of saturated hydrocarbons. Yeah, we know that. Draw the structure of 2 different alkanes with the molecular formula. So draw butane draw करें, और इनका it's saying that 2 different alkanes with the molecular formula should be same, but they should have a different structure. So they are actually talking about isomers. So let's draw butane, meth, eth, pro, but, and these are all the hydrogens right here. And then how did I tell you guys to draw the isomer? Just take the extreme CH3 and just add it in the middle, or take this CH3 and add it in the middle. So it's your choice, right? So just take this CH3, 1 carbon, lay at the end carbon, the terminal carbon, either from the left and right, and just add it in the middle, and just draw the rest of the bonds as it is. So they will all have, and you have to mention that these are hydrogens, right? I'm not mentioning it, but you have to mention it. And if you count it out, these both have C, they're both C4H10, but can you name them now for me? So meth, eth, pro, but, that's simple butane. Can you name the other one? Can we name that? We can. That's meth, eth, prop, so that's the longest carbon chain is propane, but you have a किस carbon पे आपके पास methyl group है? 1, 2. So on second carbon you have a methyl group, so you say 2-methyl propane is the name. Although they've not asked for the name, I'm just writing the name by myself, just to tell you guys that yes, they are isomers because their names are different and one is branched, right? And this is like unbranched. Now, state using the general formula of alkanes, the molecular formula of an alkane which has only 12 carbons. So alkane which has 12 carbons, so CnH2n, so it should be twice of that, so 24 ho gaya plus 2, so that's going to be 26. We've used that. Now it says, part C says Oh my god, this Siri. Just keep quiet, Siri. Yeah. Moving on, sorry, technical difficulties. Now, part C says many alkanes are separated from petroleum, crude oil. Again, they're asking you guys describe the fractional distillation of crude oil. So, crude oil is heated before. So, crude oil is heated, or you can also say it's vaporized. Either say heated or vaporized, same thing. And I showed you guys in a furnace it was heated. Then it is pumped into, then you say then it's pumped into the fractionating column where hydrocarbons are separated according in different fractions according to what, guys? According to their boiling points. This method is called fractional distillation. Always write that this method is called fractional. Okay, they've given you guys fractional distillation. Kabhi kabhar nahi diya tha, so you can get 1 mark for that. So this method is called fractional distillation, and you can also describe, because this is like a 3-mark question. So please describe even further. So you say okay, the fractionating column is hot at the bottom. So it's the hottest at the bottom, and it gets cooler as you go. So gets cooler as we go up, right? And you can also add the longer chain hydrocarbons. So see, the longer the question, the more marks the questions contain. That's why I've given you guys such a big detail for it. So longer chain molecules are obtained at the bottom, and shorter chain are at the top, right? So that's how you're gonna explain it, because it has 3 marks. You have to explain all that stuff, right? Good stuff, easy. Fractionating column is very necessary to mention the term fractionating column, right? A toll fractionating. Okay, butane reacts with chlorine to give several products. State the condition needed for the substitution reaction. Ultraviolet light or UV light. Let's say okay, one of these light, UV light. Okay. And then you say okay, one of these products, and you can also get away with just writing sunlight. But again, sunlight nahi likhe to better hai. UV light. Okay. Now one of these products contains 35, so it's again gonna ask us empirical formula. So carbon hai, hydrogen hai, chlorine hai. So carbon kitna hai? 37.8. Hydrogen is 6.3. Chlorine is 55.9. What are the steps? Divided by the molar masses. Oh, he's given us 55.9 here, 37.8 here, 6.3 here. Yeah, so I've written 35.5. And then you divide all of that easy. It's okay, Hamza. It's okay. So 37.8 divided by 12, that's going to give me like 3.15 ratio, 6.3 ratio. 55.9 divided by 35.5, that's going to give me 1.574, right? So divide both by 1.574, 1.574, and like 1.574. So if you divide them, so 3.15 divided by 1.74 gives you 2, roughly 2 aata hai. H is gonna be 6.3 divided by 1.574 is giving you 4.0000. So that's 4 ratio 1.74 divided by 1.74 is 1. So C2H4, and that's gonna be like a Cl right here. So C2H4Cl. Now you realize that this is something new. It's saying what is the molecular formula. Now you realize that I told you guys that molecular formula ke liye you need to have been given the molecular mass, everybody. But the problem here is that the molecular mass has not been given. But if you look at the top, the question says it's C4H10, right? So if you were to find the molecular formula, you realize that carbons needed to be 2, right? And needed to be 4. So if I say what is the number number n. We needed the molecular formula to calculate the number n, right? But here, because here here you are actually given the number n, you can actually deduce it from here. Why? Because C4H10 mein you guys had 4 carbons, right? And from that you've actually performed substitution reaction again and again and again. So what should be the molecular formula? If this is 4, you realize the molecular formula maybe the carbons should have been 4. So if you multiply these with 2, it'll give you C4H8Cl2. There's no science behind this. This is just like a common sense question that you wanted to test you guys with, right? So you had to check this above here because you realize that there's no molecular mass given to you guys, but they've given you कि ये butane था. So butane में chlorine react हुआ था. So what was the initial molecular formula? The initial molecular formula was C4H8 and Cl2. And the reason how we reached there was because we know कि butane में you have 4 carbons. So molecule में you had 4 carbons, and whatever we need to do to get 4 from 2, you multiply it with 2, right? So that was just a common sense question. Now, nitric acid HNO3 is used to make fertilizers. Nitric acid is manufactured. It says balance the equation. Now, if we want to balance the equation, let's just check everything first. So you have like 3 hydrogens. So you have 2 oxygens and 1, 2. You have 2 oxygens. 1 nitrogen, 1 nitrogen. What has not been balanced? Hydrogen. You have 3 hydrogens here and you have 2 hydrogens here. So now either make 3 into 2 or 2 into 3, right? So 3 को मैं किससे multiply करूँ कि 2i. So x is equal to 2 over 3. First of all, do this with a pencil. So x is equal to 2 over 3. Now you realize कि ये 3 आपने हटाने क्योंकि आपकी O levels में कहते हैं fractions मत इस्तेमाल करें. So if I wanted to remove this 3, I have to multiply everything with 3, right? The entire equation with 3. So if I multiply the entire equation with 3, what will happen is that this will become 2, this will become 3, this will become 3, and this will become 3, everybody. And now if you check your equation, what has happened? If you check your equation, something is missing now. Your nitrogens, sorry, my bad, what did I do? Wait. See, you have 3 hydrogens here and you had 2 hydrogens here, right? So 3 को मैं किससे multiply करूँ कि 2i, so x is equal to 2 over 3. So if you multiply this with 2 over 3, you will get what? You will get the same amount of hydrogens on the left hand side too. But the problem is कि now because you got 2 over 3 here, nitrogens are up unbalanced नहीं है, right? So the easy way to go about this is rather than doing this method, I'd suggest something else to you guys because this will get a little complicated. Now see, you have 2 hydrogens here and you have 3 hydrogens here. So if you wanted to balance off the hydrogens, जो इधर right hand side पे 2 लिखा है, you say okay, if I multiply this with 2 and जो left hand side पे 3 लिखा है, if you multiply this with 3, so I actually used the LCM method that I taught you guys कि 2 और 3 का आप LCM ले, so 2 ones are 2, 3 here, 3 ones are and 1 here, right? So 6 you needed to get 6. So now 2 को मैं किससे multiply करूँ कि 6 आए? 3 के साथ, and 3 को मैं किससे multiply करूँ कि 6 आए? 2 के साथ. Now the hydrogens are actually balanced. Just balance the everything else, right? So 2 times n is giving you 2 n's, and on the right hand side you also need 2 n's, so this will become 2, everybody. And now just balance out the oxygens. On the right hand side you have how many oxygens? 2 times 1 is 2 and 3 times 1 is 5. So you have 5 oxygens on the right hand side. Now left hand side with 2 है, so 2 को मैं किससे multiply करूँ कि 5 आए? With 5 over 2. So this is 5 over 2. But again, your syllabus says that you shouldn't have fractions. Now this entire equation is balanced, but your syllabus says you shouldn't have fractions, you should have whole numbers. So you multiply this entire equation with 2. So what will happen is this will become 4. This was a tricky balancing question, right? This will become 5, and then the NO will change to 4 because 2 times 2 is 4, and then this H2O will change to 6 times 2, that's 3, right? So 3 times 2, that's 6, right? So that is actually the complete balancing for this reaction. It was a little tricky, guys, but you had to make sense of it because the nitrogens and oxygens will already balance. So you said कि rather than using my ये 2 करूँ और वो 2 करूँ, this was actually affecting the nitrogen here, and then this would have been affected. You just take के hydrogen और hydrogen का मसला है. So why not just take the LCM of these 2 और 3 का LCM लिया, total 6 आ गए, which means कि 2 को मैं किससे multiply करूँ कि 6 आए? With 3, right? And 3 को मैं किससे multiply करूँ कि 6 आए? With 2, and then you balanced out everything else, and to remove the fraction you multiply the entire equation with 2, and this is what you guys got, right? Now nitric acid is used to make a soluble salt with potassium nitrate. Name the alkali that will react with dilute nitric acid to make potassium nitrate. Come on guys, what is this alkali? Come on. पोटेशियम नाइट्रेट बनाना है डाइल्यूट नाइट्रिक एसिड के साथ. कौन से एल्कली को जाना चाहिए? पोटेशियम. इट इज HNO3. Yes, a potassium hydroxide. And you realize it's a group 1, so it says name it, right? Don't write the formula, name it. So potassium hydroxide. And because it's a group 1 soluble salt, what is actually potassium nitrate is a group 1 soluble salt. So it's not saying to describe the experimental procedure to make colorless aqueous potassium nitrate, right? So what was the procedure, everybody, for group 1 soluble salt? It was different from the other soluble salts. What was the procedure? What was it? Titration. So KOH and HNO3 are titrated. You can actually just give a little bit explanation for titration, but since it's just for 2 marks, you can see that they are titrated. Acid-base titration occurs. Acid-base titration. And they're titrated once with an indicator to find the volume of neutralization, and then once without and then titrate without an indicator. That's it. But you guys should be able to tell the examiner कि titration क्या होती क्या नहीं थी, but because this was just for 2 marks, I just wrote this much, right? And it also said कि colorless aqueous solution of potassium nitrate. So once you perform titration, you realize कि a conical flask में you guys will actually get the colorless potassium hydroxide aqueous. But if it had stated कि make me solid potassium nitrate, then you would actually further elaborate on this कि then the solution is poured into an evaporating dish which is heated until the crystallization point or the point of crystallization, and until the water vapors have been removed and solid crystals of potassium hydroxide will be formed, right? Or potassium nitrate will be obtained. Potassium nitrate, right? But since it's only saying colorless solution tak bata, they're just talking about titration with an indicator to find the volume of neutralization, and then without an indicator to actually perform and get the salt, because indicator will actually be an impurity to the salt. So आपने एक दफ़ा indicator के साथ करना है to find the volume of neutralization कि कितना volume required है, फिर indicator के बगैर करें ताकि आपका salt pure हो. Okay. Then it says calculate the percentage by mass of nitrogen in potassium nitrate. So you have potassium nitrate में, so percentage by mass is part by whole into 100. So 14 divided by potassium is 39 plus 14 plus 16 times 3 and then into 100%. That is going to give you guys what? That's going to give you guys like what? 13.8 आता है इससे? 13.861 something, or 13.861 को 13.9 लिख लें. Yeah, but let's see now here they've not mentioned 2 significant figures or 3 significant figures. Now let's go up आपके examination में they've actually mentioned stuff. Look, they've actually mentioned stuff here. Show your all or your working, use appropriate units. Okay, HB pencil writes your answer. Okay, they have not mentioned it here. वैसे A levels में mention होता है कि 3 significant figures तक करना है या 2 significant figures. So it doesn't matter, you just write. If it's like 3 significant, क्योंकि 13.891 ही आ रहा है, so that's good. You can just write 13.861. Sorry, so you can just write 13.861 because ये इतना ही है, बस ठीक है. If you are confused whether to write the significant figures or write the decimal points, always remember that if nothing is mentioned to you guys, you just write up to 3 decimal points. Okay, so that's good. Or like 3 significant figures, agar whole numbers. So now fertilizers leach into livers and cause water pollution problems. Name other pollutant found in the river. So in the liver you have like heavy metal ions like lead. So heavy metal ions like lead, मैंने आपको बताया भी था how it causes kills you guys and causes diabetes and all that stuff and causes hair, old age and all that stuff. But there are also other things like you can also say fertilizers का कि you can also mention like pesticides, insecticides, herbicides, heavy metal ions. लेकिन मैंने heavy metal ions ही आपको बताया था, that's good, like lead ions and all that stuff, they are not good for us, right? Or you can also say pesticides if you want. So fertilizers के अलावा pesticides भी होते हैं, heavy metal ions भी होते हैं, and sometimes detergents वगैरह, क्योंकि we dump everything in the river, so detergents वगैरह भी, they are also inside your river water. Yeah, they are also pollutants. Now stage 3 processes used in the purification of river water to produce drinking water. So we've done this. You add carbon, and see, it's just saying 3 processes mentioned, because you say add carbon, add chlorine, and then filtration and make a, right? But I'm also going to give you guys the reasons. It's just saying state, but I'm also going to be giving you guys. So carbon क्यों डालते हैं? To remove taste and odor. So remove taste and odor, ganda smell. Then you add chlorine, why? To kill bacteria or microbes. Bacteria, microbes are a type of bacteria, right? Microorganism. Microbos likha hai. I just wrote microbes. Microbes. And then you filter it out. Why? To remove the sand particles. To remove the dust and like sand particles. Because they are insoluble. So these were the three things that we did, and then we had clean drinking water, right? और हमने तो एक और भी पढ़ा था कि you also pass it through coal to actually to remove any toxins and all that stuff present, like lead ions, heavy metal ions like lead. But since it's only three, so आपके course में यही तीन बातें हैं, so you can just write these three. And that's it. Again, so I think you were absent on that day. You pass it through coal to a layer of coal. So you watch that video, please. You pass it through a layer of coal to remove all the toxins present, like the heavy metal ions. Jo humne kaha ki this is also a pollutant. So that's it. Again, guys, 100% marks once again. So question 9. Okay. You can watch the video, Hamza. Here you go. Okay. Okay, guys, amazing. How many of you scored 75 out of 75? Be honest with me. How many of you guys think good चीजें आपसे नहीं होती? How many marks would have you scored if you guys would have given this paper on your own? So again, I got a distinction. Thank you, guys. Yeah, but you guys tell me. Let me just stop the recording. Yeah.